From the land of sky blue waters, welcome to the Sota Pod. Isha drove me here, and I thank you all for joining us wherever and whenever you are listening. Guys, it's going to be a short episode here today, and this is why. We have a few show notes / updates for the Sota Pod show. We still have a little bit of hockey talk that we're going to dive into in this episode, and a fun hoppy hour. As always, I encourage all you listening on the Sota Pod via your podcast app on the audio side of things to jump over to YouTube to not only check out all the video clips from the podcast, but also check out these hoppy hour segments that will be included in the full video version of the podcast, as well as its own separate video of the segment alone. To get the better and full experience of the Hoppy Hour segment on this show, go check us out, the Sota Pod on YouTube. And a big shout out to everybody who helped us get to 1,000 subscribers. Seriously, you guys are amazing. I appreciate every single one of you. Let's just dive right into it, guys. As many of you have already noticed, Hoppy has not been co-hosting the Sota Pod with me for a few weeks now. Well, a few months now. This is due to a couple things. First of all, new father. And when he first took a break from the Sota Pod, it was because of that, right? During the holiday season. Since then, the Sota Pod brand has been growing. Z and Hoppy have tremendous chemistry, and him jumping on Judd's Buds has just grown the show tremendously. Not only has it grown via podcast, but it's grown via live stream as well, and it's kind of turned into its own weekly scheduled programming for Minnesota Wild fans out there. In addition, Fellowship of the Rinks, episode 3 dropping this week, and he's doing the show with athletic writer and a Wild beat writer, Joe Smith. So we're dividing and conquering, ladies and gentlemen. I've been doing the Sota Pod since episode 1, so I'm always going to be steering the ship, so to speak. And as much as I could talk and talk and talk to a camera here, to all you on YouTube and you listening on the podcast, a lot of you have been listening for 300 plus episodes. You know that I'm verbose. You know that I can talk. You know that I can podcast solo. It's just not fun. It's just not, quite frankly, it's good to have conversations. And I like kind of doing these intros solo, but I like being able to bring on guests, going over to interviews, as well as the more creative hoppy hours now that obviously we're still going to bring on beer-based guests and interview them, but the show has evolved yet again. Hoppy and I will still collaborate on beer-based content, live streams, live shows, and live events. But for the time being, he will no longer be on Monday's show, the Sota Pod. Having said that, though, ladies and gentlemen, do not fear. This ain't us taking a break from this show. This isn't me saying that I need time to figure things out. We have figured things out. We're already there. And this short episode was just because we couldn't get scheduling shit going for this last episode. But joining us every Monday on the Sota Pod now, moving forward in collaboration with Locked On Wild, Seth Topol will be joining us on the Sota Pod. So there you go. It's going to be fun just switching up co-hosts here on this Monday episode of the Sota Pod, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Seth and I have been wanting to collaborate for a long time. He's one of our most regular guests. He's one of our longtime guests on the Sota Pod, and we're friends, off air as well. So this is super exciting for the both of us, and I am very excited to be able to collaborate with Seth and have some awesome hockey conversations, podcast, and cover the Minnesota Wild with Locked On's best host, Seth Topol. I will also be appearing on his program weekly as well. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. There you have it. Seth will be joining us for the hockey-heavy portions of the Sota Pod moving forward. We'll have vlog hoppy hours as well as interviews that we will be featuring weekly on the audio side of things. But if you want the full experience of the hoppy hour, go check it out on YouTube, and go check out Locked On Wild on YouTube as well. Seth's doing amazing work on YouTube. So there you have it. That is our update, and cherry on top, icing on the cake, as a result of now some regularity, a plan moving forward. No more late Monday episodes. I promise, guys. I promise. The only reason they have been coming out late on Monday, it's been such a scramble on Sundays for me for the last few weeks to nail down guests, to catch up on some of the games that I missed on the weekend because of, covering fights on the City Life project. And so Sundays, just like my whole Sunday is Sota Pod. Sometimes I don't get around to recording the episode. Sometimes I don't get around to editing it because it's just too damn late. Now that Seth and I are going to get into a rhythm, now that we have a plan, no more late Monday episodes. You'll have it bright and early, ladies and gentlemen. All right, now that that's out of the way, time to crack a cold one, because on the other side, we're jumping to the Hoppy Hour. The Hoppy Hour is brought to you by our friends at Northland Vodka. Mark Parrish and the crew at Northland Vodka are an amazing team, an amazing local company, and it's the best damn vodka on the planet, ladies and gentlemen. Even if I could drink Russian vodka in the States right now, I wouldn't, because I don't need to, because Mark Parrish has the best recipe in the world. A percentage of profits a percentage of each sale goes back into the community. That's right, goes back into local hockey. So get you some Northland today, and if your local liquor store does not have it on their shelves, ask them why, and I'm sure Mark Parrish and the team will make it happen. Big shout to Northland Vodka, proud partner of the Sota Pod.
First, I'd like to propose a toast to UMD goaltender Alex Stalock. To Stalock! To Stalock!
I love that stuff. Been drinking it for years. I heard they recently decided to add more hops to it.
You're all hopped out?
I don't wanna waste no time, so pardon this lack of composure. Exactly what my life ordered. A lover and a friend.
Yeah, real time. Woo. Yeah.
Riding on the same page, walking at the same pace, wondering how my life got here, but you're here now. Yeah. Pedal down the same street, wave at people we see. Yeah. Talking out loud of last week's ups and this week's doubts. Love was inconceivable. But since I met you head to toe, I don't wanna waste no time. So pardon this lack of.
All right, Hoppy Hour here today. We have the classic West Coast IPA from Dangerous Man Brewing. Now, you guys have heard Hoppy and I talk about Dangerous Man Brewing so much, mostly because of their peanut butter porter. Now, they have some pretty damn good IPAs as well. I personally haven't dabbled too much into the hoppier side of their beers, so I decided to pick up a West Coast IPA, given that I like the West Coast IPAs a little bit more than the hazy, the double and triple New Englands. And this one at 7.5%, with reviews ahead of time being that it's actually not too bitter, which, again, I like West Coast IPAs. I don't mind that bitter forward taste. If anything, that's how I got into craft beer, was through that style. Having said that, the reviews said that it was very smooth for a West Coast IPA and still gives you that kick at 7.5%. We poured it out. Let's test it. Cheers. Nice amber tone to it. It's excellent. It is, wow. It's not that, like, I thought their other beers would be bad just because they had like one flagship darker style. This is amazing. This is unbelievable. Wow. Cascade hops, Cashmere, Chinook, Citra, Mosaic, Simcoe. I mean, how can you go wrong with that list, right? 65 IBUs. Flavor notes on the can say it's citrus, smooth, bitter, piney, dank. I love this. I think it's amazing. This is unbelievable. 6 packs on sale right now at Liquor Boy, by the way. This is why they call it Dangerous Man. They're just too easy to drink. I mean, look at this. I'm almost done. I'm gonna have to go crack another.
Since I met you head to toe,
got a stream here in a bit. Shout out to City Life Project. Go check out my second channel. Highly recommend this, especially if you're a West Coast IPA fan. If you're just a general craft beer fan who dabbles in any of the IPA styles, any and all hoppy beers, then, I mean, you'll appreciate this as well. And for those who aren't super into West Coast IPAs, but you want to get a 6-pack on sale at Liquor Boy, give it a try. Give it a try. I think you guys will like it. Anyways, time to get back to work. Cheers.
Figured it out like the sun got its place with the rain and the clouds. If I could go back, tell myself alright, she was the wrong thing, you're gonna be fine.
Fuck, man, no, it's so good.
I don't wanna waste no time. So pardon this lack of composure. Exactly what my life was.
Guys, before we get into our final segment here, I got to give a big shout out to 7th Avenue Pizza, the best frozen pizza on the planet. And honestly, it's so good that like just saying frozen pizza is putting it in a tier below where it belongs. It belongs above the Papa John's, the Panagos for you in Canada, the Domino's, honestly, pretty much any other delivery, fuck Delicio. 7th Avenue Pizza is where it's at. Find it at Kowalski's, Holiday Stations, Lunds and Byerly, Hy-Vee, and more. It's pretty much taken over Minnesota and some surrounding states as well. Again, quality people, quality product, and it is some of the best pizza I've ever had, and it comes frozen, ladies and gentlemen. It's the S tier of frozen pizzas. You'll never have to have Domino's again. You'll never have to put yourself through that horrendous experience of eating a Domino's pizza when you can have the cream of the crop in pizza. 7th Avenue Pizza. If your grocery store doesn't carry 7th Avenue Pizza, hit up Matt and the team. They're super active on social, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and I'm sure they'll help make it happen or steer you in the right direction so you can find one close to your home. Get you some 7th Avenue Pizza today. Happy to have them as a partner here on the Sota Pod. All right, let's get into a short but sweet hockey segment. Like I said at the beginning of the show, it's a short one. Hope you guys enjoyed that hoppy hour. But let's just quickly dive into a little hockey talk here, because I originally wasn't even going to do much at all and actually produce a very short episode. But there was just a couple of things this morning as I was sipping my first cup of coffee, as I was looking at the news in the world of sports. I just wanted to quickly talk about the game that was the Wild's win over the Sharks yesterday. Now, speaking of Seth, he did a great post-game show, so I encourage you guys to go check that out for just some more color on the game. So overall, I think it was an okay performance by the Wild. Like, obviously, when you're facing one of the lower teams in the league like the Sharks, as fans, we all expect the home team, who is the better team, to just absolutely trounce them, whether we go to their barn or whether they come to the XL Energy Center, right? The fact that they let the Sharks stay at bay, all right, that was terrible. And it being such a close game, it was a little concerning. It was a little bit concerning, but, and maybe it's a little apathy seeping in, but the fact that they came out with the win, it kind of put all that concern aside, at least for the short term. At least for the rest of the evening, I was like, okay, whatever. They beat them. They got the points. They needed that. Let's move on to the next one. We've said this countless times this season. I talked about it with Seth last week on the podcast. Injuries have been the biggest factor to the Wild's up and down season, to their inconsistent play and record as a result this season. On paper, they're still one of the better teams in the division. We all know that. On paper, they are a playoff team. Now they're just really fighting for it down the stretch. And I feel like the fan base is a little bit divided. Some of the fan base really wants them just to, no, let's just draft well again this year, because look at what Judd Brackett's been doing, filling up the cabinets, rejigging the roster in the offseason to make room for some of these young guys and see what we have next year. Another year under cap hell, under the buyout penalty. And that section of the fan base, that's a great argument. That's something that I honestly can get behind and have been behind pretty much all season. And to be fair, I'm still overall in that camp, but I understand the other side as well, that it's like, no, if you make it into the playoffs, you can go on a run. Now, I know for the Minnesota Wild, historically, that has not been the case, but look at some of these other teams as of late, man. Florida sneaking in, and look at the noise they made. It's like that with most professional sports. NBA, actually, no, it even happened in the NBA last year as well. So there you go. So I understand the fan base being like, no, like it's still in sight. Let's not fold And I know no team except for the Buffalo Sabres who are trying to tank for McDavid ever actually folds. I will always laugh at how it was Neuver, if I'm not mistaken, for the Buffalo Sabres, went on like a 3 or 4 game win streak, lighting it up, and the team traded him. Oh my goodness. But anyway, so I understand that side that wants to make a run, make the playoffs. Hell, for the young guys that are on the team, Matt Boldy, who's, he's still young despite him being the National Hockey League for a few years now. Marco Ross, I mean, you want guys that playoff experience. I mean, you guys, well, I mean, new listeners don't know, but for the regular listeners, I'm from the West Coast of Canada. I've been a Canucks fan and been following that team like pretty much my whole life, and especially in the last decade. And the lack of playoff experience really hurt the likes of, say, for example, a Bo Horvat when he was with the team, because when I think they made the playoffs like 2 or 3 times in that 10 to 12 year stretch, the dark days, the darkest timeline. And he just wasn't the same guy in the playoffs. And there were some other younger guys on the team who were examples as well. But Bo Horvat in particular is what I remember when he got to the playoffs. So playoff experience isn't bad for young players, and Marco Rossi and any of these guys could benefit from it. So anyways, full circle, long of the short of it, I'm glad they beat the Sharks. Yeah, we can shred that game to bits and analyze every piece of it and be super critical of the Wild. And in fairness to Seth, he was, and I commend him for that. I didn't have the time to do all that this morning, which is why I'm leading all you guys there for this short episode. But for the most part, I'm just glad they win. I rolled my eyes that it was so close, and it was kind of ironic that it was pretty much a Minnesota Wild reunion. Let's be perfectly honest, against the San Jose Sharks. The irony with all the former Wild players on the Sharks team that they play hard. They play hard playing their former team, and maybe that's part of why they did well in that game. Or maybe it was just Gustafsson, who did not look that great again. I hope this is just kind of a mulligan season for him, and he comes back strong next year with or without Fleury on the team. I think for the most part, the team's effort wasn't there, and they leaned on a couple of their top guys. Now, I'm not saying the entire team wasn't giving an effort the whole game. There was just a lot of ebbs and flows in that one, a lot of peaks and valleys. And damn, in those valley moments of the game, shout out to Matt Boldy and Kirill Kaprizov in particular, who put this team on their backs, ladies and gentlemen. I would have thrown Brock Faber into that mix. He's obviously hurt right now. I don't want to say a shadow of what he's been throughout the first part of the season. You can definitely tell that something's up. And I was seeing on Twitter some people saying, like, is it fatigue because, not used to playing a season this long coming out of college? Is it injury or all these big minutes in a long season catching up to him? And Michael Russo of The Athletic did confirm that he is hurt. He's healthy enough to play, and he's continuing to play. So that's why there's a little bit of a decline, I guess, in his play. And I imagine there's a little bit of a minute drop off too lately. I don't have the tab up in front of me, but based on my eye test watching the games, it seems like he's been out there a little bit less than, again, the start of the season. But anyways, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. The positives, though, Kirill Kaprizov, hat trick and hitting his 300th point. By the way, Star Wars Night at the X, always a fun one. Unbelievable career thus far for Kirill Kaprizov, both in the National Hockey League and just in his pro career in general, as he was lighting up the KHL, Olympic gold medalist, not as a Russian, but as an Olympic athlete of Russia. And now just absolutely dominating in the National Hockey League. And a big shout to Matt Boldy as well for getting his 150th point. Now, I know he's been a streaky player thus far, but he's only 22, 23 years old, man. He's so young. Consistency will come. Because when he's doing well and he's in that consistent stretch, it's not like it's puck luck, and it's not like he's like over trying. He's in that flow state. I just think getting in that flow state in any sport at the highest level, like, it takes time to be able to get into that more often and not have it be broken by outside noise or other things, the game within the game compromising it as well. And I think Matt Boldy, I think he'll be fine. I don't think there should be any concerns for him. I really don't. Both were clutch in the victory against the Sharks, guys, and I gotta hit my toque to them. Quickly here, last thing I want to get to before we wrap things up, ladies and gentlemen. Just a little trade deadline talk, because the next time you guys will hear from me will be Seth, and we'll be breaking down the trade deadline. We record the Sota Pod on Sunday, and it will drop Monday for you guys, both on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast from. So, I won't have a lot of time to preview it. And honestly, Z, Hoppy, and Joe, they're going to go through it. They're going to give you guys the meat on the bone that you seek. Again, going back to me just sipping my morning coffee, going through the sports news. There's two things trade related that I wanted to share with you guys on this program. First of all, and again, sorry to keep going back to the Canucks. All right, sorry. I know I did a couple times in the last few episodes. I'm doing it again here. I didn't go on Canucks news and want to share this. Okay, it came up just on hockey news. All right, so don't blame me. Blame the news cycle. But anyways, Elliot Friedman of Sportsnet hinted that the Canucks are interested in flipping their newly acquired center, Elias Lindholm. He only has 6 points, 4 goals in his last 14 games played. Elias Pettersson is now signed to his 8-year extension. So the Canucks plan of maybe having Lindholm as an insurance plan, I mean, they can scratch that off. They don't really need him as insurance anymore. And since they signed Pettersson and have a few other guys they have to sign as well, Lindholm might not be in their future plans. Now, some people might be thinking, well, they gave up a lot in Kuzmenko, who, had a really good breakout year in the National Hockey League. Has been okay this year, but still good, but kind of a streaky player in his own right. They still gave up value for him. So just to walk away from him this year, especially if they don't make any noise in the playoffs, that's kind of a kick in the nuts, especially with Kuzmenko being such a big fan favorite in Vancouver, and I imagine now in Calgary as well. So with all that being said, Friedman said that there is a possibility that he is flipped at the deadline. There are some teams interested, and it's not like the Canucks are going to get a crazy probably piece in return for flipping a guy after they just acquired him who's kind of in a funk right now. And again, I don't blame him for being in a funk. I mean, you join a new team, a team that has been firing on all cylinders. You're kind of brought in to somewhat like plug a hole. I'm not saying necessarily a positional hole, center or wing, because obviously Kuzmenko is a wing, but a hole that needs to be filled, something that Kuzmenko was bringing last year, but not this year. And it just hasn't been going well. It hasn't looked like, the first few games it looked like he was doing well, but I think, there's that honeymoon phase. It just looks like he's just been a bit off and hasn't been fitting in with the group there on the ice and in that system. Players flip this quick. I mean, that's super unlikely. We don't see that often in the National Hockey League, so I don't think it's going to happen. I wouldn't bet on it. I don't think Friedman is either, look, he was reporting on it, so where there's smoke, there must be a spark or a little ember at least, right? But there may not be any fire there. There may not be any fire. The one thing I do know, and probably all you know as well, all you beautiful hockey fanatics, the Canucks really want Jake Guentzel. They really want Jake Guentzel. That has not been a secret all season. But I don't think Lindholm is necessarily going to be part of that deal. I don't know if the Penguins are interested in that. Maybe they are. Maybe they are because Lindholm maybe they are because his contract is up this year, and if he plays well, okay, maybe we can fit him in. Pittsburgh has cap issues of their own. And I know there's rumblings of Sidney Crosby maybe being traded, of Evgeny Malkin not coming back, blah, blah, blah. I mean, look, those two are retiring with the Penguins. Whether Malkin continues to play or not, I don't know. I'm not as plugged into the Penguins market, but I haven't heard anything that would suggest that right now. And the fact that people are bringing up that Sidney Crosby is going to be traded, it's foolish, bro. Foolish. Anyways, turning our attention to the Minnesota Wild, though. And let me know what you think the Canucks are going to do if you're watching this before the trade deadline or listening to this before the National Hockey League trade deadline. And also let me know what the hell you think the Minnesota Wild are going to do, because let's dive into that here before we wrap up the show, guys, in this final segment. I highly doubt that the Minnesota Wild are going to be as active as they were going into the trade deadline and at the trade deadline last year. I highly doubt they'll be buyers. I highly doubt they'll be buyers like last season where they got Marcus Johansson, Gustav Nyquist. By the way, they acquired a 2nd-round pick and a 5th-round pick, and that 2nd-round pick became Riley Heidt. Let's fucking go, bitches. John Klingberg and Oscar Sundqvist as well. So they actually acquired a ton of pieces last year. This year, I do not think that's going to be the case. I think they're going to be sellers more than anything, shaving off the fat that's not really going to hurt this team if they're gone too much, maybe vibes wise and, a little bit of tenacity on the ice, but it's mostly for creating roster spots for potentially a Beckman, but surely for the Russians who are coming over. Marah Huznadinov just signing with the Minnesota Wild, and Yurov, who may join them in the summer. I personally would love to see Marcus Foligno moved. Now I know he has, no move clause or no trade clause, and he signed that extension. It'll be hard to move that just because of the contract kicking in next year. What team is going to be able to take that on? What team is going to be able to quickly revise some of their plans on the cap side of things and be okay, now we're bringing in Foligno, and this is his contract situation. We have to kind of rejig our plans and see how they fit into the equation. Like, there's going to be some moving parts there. It's not something you can just make like that. It's not as simple as some of these other guys. Having said that, I think there's still more value in Foligno than that of Dewar or Duhaime, which are the other two players that I think will likely get dealt, one or both. Foligno, I don't think is going to get dealt, but I think there's just more value coming in. You shed that contract, that I know it's not a lot of term, but that term, yeah, you lose some of that tenacity, but you're going to lose some tenacity as well if you get rid of Dewar and or Duhaime. A little bit more Duhaime than Dewar, obviously. But again, value-wise, you can get the best return from Foligno. So that's who I would like to see. Hartman, I don't know. I just like Hartman too much. Maybe that's just a bias thing. Maybe Hartman is the better player to move. But I like Hartman. And I think he's a valuable guy to this team. And I'd like to see him with the Minnesota Wild throughout the duration of his extension. Foligno on the other hand, love him, love Moose. I mean, you guys know I'm the fight fan. I'm the fight fan of the Sota Pod here. So I respect Moose, and I'll always cheer for him. But I just think for the Minnesota Wild, he's the one who probably shouldn't have been re-signed. He's the one who should be dealt, in my opinion. But likely it'll be Dewar and or Duhaime. Again, they need to clear roster spots. That is the biggest thing right now. They need to be sellers. They need to make room for Marat and the Russians, ladies and gentlemen. There you go. Those are my just two quick thoughts on the trade deadline coming up here on Friday. Again, Hoppy and Joe on Fellowship of the Rinks will cover that in depth, and Hoppy and Z will cover it in depth as well. Players they think are going to be on the move, what teams are going to be buyers, what teams are going to be sellers, what they think the Minnesota Wild will or won't do. All that and more Tuesday and Wednesday, guys. And don't forget, Wednesdays, every Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. Central Time, live on the Sota Pod YouTube channel. You can be part of the show. You can be live in the chat. You can get your questions in ahead of time. Judd's Buds, live on YouTube every Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. Central Time. And then we drop the audio on the podcast feed on Fridays. Before we wrap up the show, guys, I want to give a quick shout out to our friends at Better Edge. Better Edge is a free platform with legal betting in the state of Minnesota among 44 other states. Great company, great people, local company as well. And if you want $20 to play around with, if you want to take advantage of a sign-up bonus for being a loyal listener of the Sota Pod, you can do that by going to betteredge.com/SotaPod. That's betteredge.com/SotaPod to claim your $20 sign-up bonus today. What better way to use that sign-up bonus, at least to start anyways, on our Wild Game Day Pick'ems. That's right, Hoppy hosts a Wild Game Day Pick'em competition where you can pick 7 out of 10 available bets, moneyline, player point totals, etc. $5 entry, winner takes all every single Minnesota Wild game. Follow the Sota Pod on Better Edge for more contest notifications. And if you're loving this platform, go check out Better Edge Premium. Premium players have access to free premium pick'em contests, order grades, advanced order filtering, API access, and more. But if you're new, if you're just hearing this right now, or if you're hearing this again and you're like, you know what, I will go check that out, go to betteredge.com/SotaPod, sign up there and claim your $20 today. betteredge.com. Happy to be partnering with them here on the Sota Pod. Well, that's it. That's the show. Guys, don't forget to like and subscribe to this video if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening to the podcast, go to our YouTube channel, The Sota Pod, and go subscribe to the channel and check out the Hoppy Hour segments that will be posted on that channel to get the best experience of the Hoppy Hour. You want to check it out here on YouTube. Thank you for those tuning in on Google, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. Folks, the best thing you can do for us this week, any week, is give us 5 stars and a review on the podcast side. And that applies also to YouTube. Smash that like button and don't forget to comment on the videos, as it just helps the algoritmo and helps on the podcast side. If you guys rate and review, helps us get pushed in front of more ears. And on the YouTube side, if you guys like, comment, it pushes us in front of more viewers. With that being said, we'll be back next week alongside Seth Topol here on the podcast again. Trade deadline this week. Oh my goodness. I hope you all took off Friday. State tournament as well. I didn't even get into that, but we got the high school hockey state tournament. I'll be going to the semifinal games on Friday, so there'll be a lot to talk about, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my God, I can't believe I missed that. Take my Minnesota card away. I am not worthy. I am not worthy. Signing off, I'm Isha Jerome. This has been the Soda Pod presented by our friends at Better Ed, 7th Avenue Pizza, Northland Vodka, and Waggle Golf. Don't fear, just drink some beer and stay wild.